In this presentation, I want to give you some insights that I've gained from the last 25 years of working with elite athletes at different levels, and talk about the habits that I've seen the most successful athletes have, and ways that we can alter our lifestyle to promote a higher level of performance. Some of this comes from research that's done on sleep, on nutrition, on training, but also a lot of it comes from observations that I've made in the habits of the athletes that I've worked with. The high performance lifestyle involves three columns. One that we're going to maximize, one that we're going to optimize, and then the third we're going to minimize. The maximize column, we're really talking about tactical preparation. And in the minimize column, we're talking about minimizing the use of substances that might alter how our nervous system functions, how our body recovers from stress, and also the other stress in our life that can make it harder for our body to withstand the challenges of an athletic lifestyle. And then in the middle, we're talking about getting our training, our nutrition, our recovery, and our mindset to an optimum state. Too much is not good for you. Too little is not conducive to high performance and health. So we want to figure out how to optimize those things. We get all of those things balanced and in the right levels, and we can reach peak performance. But the key to this is that it's a lifestyle. This isn't just something that you adopt during the season or when the playoffs come around. This is something that you live day in and day out, the habits that you create over time in order to facilitate high levels of performance and the commitment to that type of a lifestyle. All right, so let's talk about each one of these. Let's first talk about maximizing tactical preparation. All right, this deals with watching film, visualization, studying the game, studying other players, studying the scheme that you're in, studying your opponent's scheme. This is one of those things where you're building the mental capacity or the knowledge base to perform at the highest level of your sport. And I found this video talking about Luke Kuechly, and I think it's very indicative of what we're trying to do here. So let me play this real quick.
It's not difficult to make a case for All-Pro linebacker Luke Kuechly to be on the top 100. Just ask his opponents, who all echo a familiar praise.
The thing that makes Luke special is just how smart he is as a player. He was called out half the plays we were running before we ran them.
He knows exactly what play you're running. You check to something, he knows it.
I don't know how he does it. I don't know whether he's getting insider trading information or what's going on, but he does it so well.
Patriot! Patriot screen!
Kuechly reads the quarterback so fast and so well that you see plays like this.
I remember we checked to it was a toss, and then we checked it to an inside zone run. And he just pointed, it's coming right here. Ran right through and made the tackle easy, like easy.
Kuechly is so quick at play recognition, and he just does not waste any step.
So basically, you see as you become so knowledgeable about your sport and about your assignment and about the scheme that your performance is elevated. One interesting note that I'd make regarding game speed, something that I've studied quite a bit of over time, the best metric that I have found that correlates to a high game speed is the number of hours spent watching film. And if you think about just how much faster you can play when you're comfortable in the environment and you know what's happening and you know what to expect. So if you have extra time, this is the area that you want to focus on. I see a lot of players, you get an extra hour during the week, and a lot of athletes want to go work out. But that might throw the physical stress out of balance. And instead, I highly recommend that you maximize the amount of time that you're spending on tactical preparation. So then we want to optimize things. That deals with physical preparation or practice and your training, both of which need to be at an optimum level. if we start with practice, I've seen varying approaches to game preparation. At Alabama, working with Nick Saban, he always said that the game should be the easiest thing of the entire week. Practices were very difficult and very long and challenging. I've also seen other coaches be successful in minimizing the amount of physical stress that their players experience during the week. But I think the best approach is probably a balanced effort. So there's value in practicing hard. There's value in exertion during the week, in preparing for a game. But there's also value in tapering off towards the end of the week and getting it balanced out. From an athlete standpoint, I think the key to optimizing physical preparation is just developing consistent, effective habits in your practice effort. The focus of each repetition, the intent that you're practicing with, and the value that you're finding from practice. If you optimize that and you're giving full effort when the effort is needed and full focus when the mental side of it is needed, then I think you'll get the most out of your practice time. When it comes to coaches, getting this balanced out and feeling comfortable with the number of reps that you're doing during the week is sometimes a tricky thing. But I've always said that the coach needs to know the best way to prepare the athlete for the competition. And it's not up to a sports scientist or a strength and conditioning coach or somebody else to determine what the athletes need to do in order to be best prepared for the game situation. But I would counter that the best approach is not always to just do more and more and more. I encourage coaches to figure out how to make practices more effective, not just harder. Then we get to training. In the off season, I think a lot of athletes are committed to a training program. It's probably in season that I see the biggest drop off. And, athletes need to understand that lifting during the season is just as important as in the off season. And I've always said, regardless of what sport you're in, there are 2 good weight room sessions are needed every week. What we're doing in those sessions is important, and it is possible to do too much volume or work at too high of an intensity at times. But similar to practice, we need to optimize what we're doing in those sessions. But from the athlete standpoint, the commitment to an in-season training program is really important. This training should be year-round and it should be periodized, meaning we're not always just maxing out or we're not always training at the hardest level. There's times where we deload and there's time where we recover and we back off a little bit and then we ramp up, and that's periodization, and that process is really important. But again, we need a coach that's committed to year-round training and an athlete that buys into that. Now, regarding the physical prep and training, this is one of my favorite quotes from Lance Armstrong. And he said that he never really got a big kick out of winning the Tour de France. What really got him going, where he really got the rush, was trying to win the Tour de France. The daily training, the daily grind of preparing for such an intense, challenging race and event, that's what he actually got the biggest rush out of. And I think as I look at the best athletes that I've ever worked with, they enjoy practice and lifting and training as much as they enjoy the competition. It's that challenge of being prepared and trying to win, which happens during the week or during the off season or during different times. That commitment to that grind is important. And I think it's important that we attack that process and enjoy that process as much as we just commit to it. The next 3 things that we want to optimize are nutrition, our sleep and recovery, and the mindset. From a nutrition standpoint, I highly recommend that athletes seek qualified direction, but too often I see nutritionists just giving general information or basic answers to things. And I think from an athlete standpoint, you should ask very specific questions when you're seeking help. and you should expect very specific and personalized answers when it comes to your nutrition habits. If you're not tracking those habits, I think you're leaving a lot to chance. And I would say, if you meet with a nutritionist and they don't ask to see some of your trends or some data on what you're actually doing from day to day or week to week, then I would go find a new nutritionist. This requires data, this requires patterns and habits, and there's some apps that are fairly easy to use to track your nutrition habits. And I think if you're really truly committed to an elite lifestyle, you're going to be tracking everything that you're eating throughout the day. And as you get help from qualified nutritionists, then that data becomes pretty valuable. From a sleep and recovery standpoint, research is showing that 9.25 hours of sleep per night is a good starting point. Some athletes can go below that, and some need more than that, but that's a pretty good gauge to see where you're at in terms of the amount of sleep that you're getting. And sleep is the number one factor in recovery. There's nothing we can do with any other modality that replicates what our body does when we're asleep. So commit fully to a good night's sleep and do your best to get the required amount. But I also think that it's important to periodize your sleep relative to your physical demands. So, during the off season in a heavy training cycle, or during training camp, during the playoffs, during a strenuous run in a season, those are times where we need more sleep and we need more recovery. Increasing that amount when we face added physical demands is important. I would also like to see athletes get into a habit every day, spending 45 to 60 minutes on some kind of recovery modality. There's a lot out there. There's a lot of different methods. There's no magic potion to it, but they're all valuable and could serve some value. And I like to see some variety in there. But just taking an hour every day to try to get the body right is a really good elite habit that I've seen some of the best athletes get into. And then finally, the mindset. You've probably all heard the saying, get your mind right. Well, to me, that's the right amount of certain things. Positivity is important, but so is self-criticism. People who are too self-critical often burn out, but those who are too self-positive often think that they're better than they really are, and they don't need to practice as much or work as hard. So there's the right amount of those two things, the right amount of motivation with the right amount of acceptance. Right? You got to be motivated every day to get better. And the most elite athletes I've worked with, even the ones at the top of their field, still want to get better. They're motivated to improve. They're motivated to do something more. But they also accept that there are certain things that are out of their control, certain things that they just can't influence. So they're motivated to improve what they can and accept the things that they can't. And then they're the right amount of urgency with the right amount of patience. Athlete development is a long-term process. It takes time, and certain things don't happen overnight. But there has to be an urgency that every day, like Kobe Bryant said, this Mamba mentality is that every day I'm trying to be the best that I can be. I'm trying to get better every day. There's an urgency and a consistency to that, with an understanding that it's going to take time for those things to develop. And as I said before, balance here is really the key. Your recovery relative to your stress, your sleep relative to training, your nutrition relative to exertion, your mindset relative to demands. It's just balance. And, especially with athletes under the age of 28, it is really hard to overtrain. But the burnout that we often see, or the breakdowns that we often see with athletes, is because of an imbalance. Right? There's a high training stress, and an inadequate or inappropriate amount of recovery. So it's an imbalance. Right? So just consider, the greater the stress, the more recovery and balance that you need to find in your lifestyle. And then we want to minimize certain things, and this is there's good research and good reasoning behind why we want to minimize these things. The first is alcohol and drug use, or any chemical or substance that alters the way the nervous system functions. Right? High performance is very much a neurological component. Right? The body needs to function at a very, very high level. And when we put things in our body that alters the way the nervous system functions, we see a decline in performance and an increased risk of injury. And you can kind of see the way in which some of those happen, but that's just something we want to avoid. Oftentimes athletes will ask me, well, how much can I get away with? And my immediate response is, that's not an elite mindset. Right? We're not trying to get away with anything. We're trying to reach optimum peak performance. And so in order to do that, we need to be committed to minimizing the things that are going to detract from that. And then the other side is anxiety and stress. And I'm just talking about life stress, life anxiety, anything that causes you to be uneasy is stressful. And we need to deal with those things. We can't remove all of those stresses. That's not realistic in life, but we need to look at how we're dealing with those things. And the reason is that stress puts us into a catabolic state. So we're trying to recover from the stresses of an athletic lifestyle. And if we have stresses that are impairing our body's ability to repair itself, then we're just going to put that imbalance in even make it even worse. So, how we deal with stress and how we function with it. If there's ways that we can remove that stress from our life, then do it. But these are two areas where I think athletes need to be more comfortable seeking help when they have issues with these things. Definitely reach out to people around you who can help you, whether you have a substance abuse issue or anxiety and stress. So here's a quick self-assessment. This is mainly meant for the athlete. How close do you want to be to optimal? If your answer is that you want to be at the highest level, then you need to check and see if your habits really reflect that. How much sleep do you get every night? Remember, 9.25 hours is a good starting spot. How close are you getting to that? And what are you doing in your life to try to get more of that sleep if you're not getting enough of it? How many weeks do you take off in the off season? I see athletes still today, they're taking 2 to 3 months off in an off season, and while it should be periodized, postseason you should take 2 to 3 weeks, and then you should start getting back into training. How often do you lift during the season? As I said, I think 2 good, effective lifts during the season each week are important. Right? How many ounces of water do you drink every day? The best recommendation I can give you is your body weight in ounces. So see how close you are and recommit to better hydration. How much does your body weight fluctuate? Right? The best athletes that I've worked with, their body weight only fluctuates a pound every month. And it may fluctuate up and down a little bit, but it's not very much. If you're seeing daily changes in your body weight, then your nutrition habits and your recovery methods aren't good enough. And then how many days a week do you smoke, drink, or vape? Again, the goal is 0. The closer we are to optimal, or want to be to optimal, the more we have to minimize those things. Then from a parenting and coaching standpoint, here's the best advice I can give you on helping your athletes to buy into a high-performance lifestyle. First is to lead and not lecture. Especially younger athletes, you've got to, the psychology of getting people to buy in is important. And the more they feel like you're lecturing them, the less they'll probably listen. But at the same time, you've got to educate. So we're educating without lecturing. We're leading, not condemning. Especially when it comes to things like alcohol and drug use, or if an athlete is uncomfortable, feels like you're lecturing them or you're condemning the habit, they're probably less likely to buy in. So we're going to focus on performance. We're going to educate the athlete about the negative impacts on performance from these substances or from a bad habit. Right? Then we're going to reinforce the positive changes. When we see something going well, and we see an athlete making the effort to adopt a better habit, then we reinforce that. Another thing from coaches and parents, consider scheduling. This is the best example I can give you is sleep. We want the athlete to get over 9 hours of sleep, but we got them up until 11:30 doing homework, and then they're waking up at 6 a.m. to go work out. It's simple math. There's not enough time because of their schedule. So we need to look at how we're scheduling and creating a more optimum daily routine. And then we just want to facilitate. If an athlete wants to make positive changes, then we want to do everything we can to support them in making those changes in their lifestyle. Right? Once we adopt the lifestyle and we get consistently committed to it, elite performance starts to happen.